Rich Paul says LeBron James faced more obstacles and competition on his road to winning 4 championships with 6 finals losses. Right? But when we see all of the hype around LeBron James, and this is even before he entered the NBA, it's easy to kind of understand where Rich Paul comes from as LeBron James's agent. Right? Even LeBron's teammates tried to dismiss his impact his rookie season with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But since then, the one thing that we know is he's fought hard to let his game do all of the talking. But when we talk about LeBron James, his game, finals competition, I think we all understand who we are making that comparison to, and that's Michael Jordan. Today here on the show, we're going to compare the numbers. We're going to look at the stats, the analytics, and every potential metric to really determine if that statement is factually true here on FYF Sports.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All your feelings hurt when it get real. All of them fake, so they ain't ready, no. It be too hard, we getting lit, cause we speaking on. Fuck all the clowns, yeah, the ones who do it for the boy. All we going on, all your feelings hurt when it get real. All of them fake, so they ain't ready, no.
Alright, this is FYF Sports, man. It's Lamont. Like I said, we back. Another great podcast episode for you guys today. And again, we gotta touch on a topic that I saw, and not just I saw this article, but then I thought back to a lot of the conversations that we have on this channel when we go live, when I listen in to other channels, when I listen into the debates. And then there are so many myths. I hear so many people come with flawed logic, flawed arguments, right? Depending on what era you grew up in, you have older people who say that, you know, this era was tougher and X, Y, and Z. So the only thing we can really do at this point in time, especially if so many people are so grounded in the fact that they want to compare everything that these two guys do, right? And everyone has their own agendas and their own internalized reasons for wanting to compare the two. Either way, we like to divest into the debates. But again, with an unbiased lens, we want to give you guys the real talking points, the real facts. So when you go into these debates, you have whatever tools you need to push whatever narrative you want. We're just here to bring you the facts. And then based on those facts, at least give you our conclusion on what we think the answer to this question is. So when we think to Rich Paul's statement, and Rich Paul's original statement was exactly this. Rich Paul states that it says, Rich Paul says LeBron James faced more obstacles than Michael Jordan. Again, the comparison there always going to be with Michael Jordan. It says the road for LeBron was just as hard, if not harder, than the road was for Michael Jordan. And so when a lot of people like to jump into these GOAT conversations, you will have a few people that will try to stray away from the 6-0 logic, and they will actually try to make some, I guess, intelligent basketball takes as to why you might want to label Jordan as a better player or the GOAT over LeBron James. But the arguments that even those basketball heads or talkers, even those people who use that logic, it's even flawed there, because again, they start to go to the competition, and there are a lot of myths surrounding both Jordan, and there are a lot of myths surrounding LeBron James. And we are going to break it down. So when we want to talk about who faced more competition, we can't just start running to names and things like that. We literally have to break down what each player's done with regards to accolades, statistical accomplishments, things like that. We have to start breaking it down, what they did in their era, or in LeBron James's case, we can say eras because he's played across multiple eras. We have to consider what he's been able to accomplish in his era against that level of competition, and then start to look at some of the elements that people like to use with regards to labeling a player as the GOAT. So we can get to our first element. Okay, so when we get to our first element here, you guys clearly see it right here. We got to start with accolades. These accolades are going to indicate what either LeBron and Michael Jordan has been able to do against their own era, against the competition that they have to face. And again, we're not even getting into the actual competition that they're going up against yet. So currently Jordan holds a lead in all accolades minus Rookie of the Year, All-Star appearances, All NBA, and Hall of Fame, because again, they're equal there. He has a better finals record as well as 2 more rings than LeBron, right? He also has 3 more All Defensive selections and 1 more MVP award. He also has a Defensive Player of the Year award and accomplishment that's one of the few accomplishments that has eluded LeBron James. It says, while LeBron has a way to go, his dominance to acquire his 4th ring has made him even closer in capturing his goal of 6 or more rings. So again, LeBron's had a lot of attempts to get to 6 rings. He's still not there yet. It only took Jordan 6 times to do it. But when we look at just the accolades and what you've been able to amass and accumulate in your era against the competition that you face, again, I think accolades goes advantage Michael Jordan. Okay, so next up we got statistics. And again, everything we do here is going to be in black and white. Why black and white? Is so no one can say we finessed or tried to make something seem like it really wasn't. We really want to just go straight black and white so you guys understand the numbers. There's no trickery involved. And I know that happens with some of the older 80s and 70s fans where you think the graphics and things kind of skew the narrative. So we're not going to do the graphics here. We're going to go strictly black and white so no one is confused. So when we go to statistics, LeBron James statistics indicate that he is a much better overall basketball player. While Jordan scored more overall, LeBron is a more efficient player, shooting better from the 2-point and 3-point range. LeBron is also a much better passer and rebounder than Jordan ever was. MJ has a much better free throw percentage, which also helps to bolster that points per game statistic. And I like to correlate that example to Shaquille O'Neal. Imagine what Shaquille O'Neal's points per game could have been if he were able to shoot free throws. And then there are almost even in efficiency rating, with Michael being first overall in NBA history and LeBron James, he's trailing slightly at second. It says Michael has averaged more steals per game, but both players are dead even in blocks per game. And it says LeBron does turn the ball over more as well. And so what these career stats show is that LeBron James is capable of excelling in all aspects of the game, not just scoring. And so again, with these regular season statistics, we have to give LeBron James the edge here. And then as the numbers transition over into the finals, in the finals, LeBron loses his advantage in shooting efficiency slightly, being even in 2-point field goal percentage, but he excels even higher above Jordan in his rebounding and passing ability in the finals. He also takes advantage over Jordan defensively, leading in blocks and nearly equal to Jordan in steals. Jordan won more games and thus has a greater overall finals record on an individual performance level. However, LeBron excels in more categories than Jordan in both the regular season and finals if you're just looking at statistics. And I know, again, when we look at the 6-0, that's not necessarily a statistic. That's an output of what your team was able to do, and your statistics help that. And again, as we mentioned with the accolades, that 6-0 is one of those accolades that we just can't take away from Jordan. But if we're just going off pure statistics, and again, I know a lot of the Jordanites and the Jordan fans hate to hear this, but again, the numbers here again go to show statistically, in their era, LeBron has been the more dominant player. So we have to give statistics to LeBron James. Okay, so this next category right here is clutch. Who is more clutch, LeBron or Jordan. And I really think this category gets glossed over because no one really does their homework when trying to break it down. And so one of the most important parts of a basketball game is being able to hit big shots when your team needs it, especially when we're looking at these players and we're comparing greats in their own era. If you're going to be an alpha male, lead your team, and be considered the greatest ever, then you have to be able to step up with that cold blood and win the game. Jordan is revered for being one of the most clutch players ever. There's no doubt in that. LeBron, on the other hand, has been criticized for his entire career for the lack of what some people call clutchness compared to, let's say, MJ or a Kobe. Right, so what we did right here is we compiled LeBron and Michael's playoff statistics and compared how their career numbers to games in which they faced elimination, as well as games in which they could eliminate their opponents. And these are the results, as you can see right here. And so, again, what I like to look to, and again, I know a lot of numbers here we're going to be breaking down. Jordan's record. Jordan eliminating opponents. When it comes time to eliminating opponents, Jordan is 30-10. But when it says when Jordan is facing elimination himself in his career, he has a losing record when his back is really put up against the wall. Again, facing elimination, that is a level of being clutch. It's not always about the last second shots and things of that nature, the last 2 minutes, however people want to dice it up. Facing elimination or eliminating opponents, you have to be clutch to do so. And in those moments, Jordan is 5-7. And when we look at their stats, we see how those numbers play out. When we look at LeBron James and those same numbers, LeBron James is 36-11. 36-11 when it comes time to eliminating opponents. And then when LeBron's facing elimination, LeBron James has a winning record at 14-10. And I know a lot of people want to say his record is due to longevity, but at the end of the day, however he got this record, over a large number of games, LeBron James has a winning record when it comes to eliminating opponents in the playoffs, and also a winning record when he's facing elimination himself. And I think, again, that goes to clutch. So just in that particular aspect with regards to wins and losses, the statistics show one thing clearly. LeBron steps up in the clutch far more strongly than Jordan did. When facing a chance to eliminate an opponent, Jordan was 30-10, or 75% of the time, one of the 8 main statistical categories. His numbers dropped in each except for free throw percentage and turnovers. He shot 9% worse and had 1.4 fewer rebounds and 2.1 fewer assists and 0.8 fewer steals and 0.6 fewer blocks. His only impressive improvement was having 0.8 fewer turnovers in such games. His scoring efficiency, assists and rebounds, and overall defense all lacked in games where he could put opponents away. Now, again, for Jordan fans, I know it's tough to hear that because you guys lived in a highlight era, and so the only thing that you saw were the highlights when he actually made the shot. But when you compile all of the statistics and you compare all of these games in an unbiased fashion, it doesn't look so good for Jordan in that light. Now, however, when facing elimination, Jordan stepped up in some ways. He's 5-7 in his career in elimination games, boasting a winning percentage of 41%. Facing elimination, Jordan's field goal percentage, free throw percentage, steals, and turnovers all got worse. He improved in rebounds, assists, blocks, and points while he shot worse slightly. He did score 2.7 more points per game. His rebound and assist improved as well by 1.7 each per game. However, he missed 5.7% more free throws when facing elimination and turned the ball over 1.5 more times per game. Now, when we talk about LeBron, when facing a chance to eliminate his opponent, he boasts a record of 36-11, as we mentioned earlier, or a 76% winning percentage. Of the 8 main statistical categories, he improved in 4 and remained the same in 1. His rebounds, steals, blocks, and points per game all improved. He added 1.7 more rebounds, 0.2 more blocks, and 1.2 more points. His free throw percentage falls 0.2%. His overall field goal percentage also falls 2.9%, and he turns the ball over at the exact same rate that he does for his career. So James simply gets a little more involved in games where he can finish his opponents, but many of his numbers only slightly increase in these situations. Now, when James is facing elimination, he completely changes according to the statistics. Of the 8 main statistical categories, he improves in 7. He shoots 3.5% better, adds 5.6 more rebounds per game, 1.8 more assists and 0.8 more steals, 1 more block and 1.3 fewer turnovers, and a staggering 9.2 more points. His only downside is his free throw percentage, as it drops by 7.9% when facing elimination. LeBron plays at a completely different level when facing elimination. He improves in his own court efficiency in every way imaginable. We're talking scoring, rebounding, getting others involved. He vastly improves defensively, and he turns the ball over less. In conclusion, when we're talking about clutch, LeBron is a much more clutch player than Jordan, right? When the two smelled blood and he had a chance to eliminate their opponents, LeBron wins 1.6 times more often. When their backs are against the wall, LeBron wins 16.7% more often. Jordan only improved slightly in a few categories when facing elimination. LeBron improved in almost every single category and improved incredibly when facing elimination. So to say LeBron doesn't play better and more clutch in crunch time situations is just an absurd notion that Jordan fans like to just kind of put out there. James has also hit more buzzer beater than Jordan, right? And we can move to that statistic right here. And this surprises a lot of people. LeBron has also hit more buzzer beaters than Jordan, more go-ahead shots with 5 seconds to go in the game. His field goal percentage in these shots is also higher than Jordan's. You can see the statistics of each. And again, we see it right here. Jordan, 3 buzzer beaters in the playoffs to LeBron's 5. Right? The field goal percentages don't lie. So again, there's this narrative. There is a narrative that LeBron is not clutch. But when you actually do the statistics, and especially in the playoffs, when you actually do the statistics do not support those particular arguments. It just doesn't. So again, that is a false narrative that has been debunked when we're comparing these two players and when we're talking about what they've done against competition in their own era. The clutch factor in their own era, or in LeBron James's case, eras, this clutch factor has to go to LeBron James. Okay, and so now we're getting to the heart of competition with this stat. So what we see on the screen now is the number of Hall of Famers played in championship games, right? Jordan has faced 9 Hall of Famers during championship games. All right, we see it right here. Magic Johnson, a worthy opponent, one of the greats of all time. James Worthy, Clyde Drexler, Barkley, Gary Payton, John Stockton 2 times, and Karl Malone 2 times. That's a very formidable list. Stacked up against any other player, that might be unmatched. When you have to pit these stats up against LeBron James, it looks a little different. Now, of course, not all of these players were in their prime, and overall both played against good competition. While this doesn't cover their playoffs roads to get to the finals, it does show the top talent that each player faced on the biggest stage. LeBron has faced 2 dynasties on seven. Now, listen to this, y'all. LeBron's faced 2 dynasties on 7 separate occasions in the Spurs and the Warriors. Let me repeat that again. LeBron faced 2 dynasties on 7 separate occasions, right? In the Spurs and the Warriors. As for the playoffs, there's a long list of players that MJ and LeBron have faced, many of which are Hall of Famers, right? But when we look at this list right here, this is just LeBron's championship in the NBA Finals. This is just a comp he played in the NBA Finals. Tim Duncan, who's in many people's top 10 3 times. Parker Ginobili, we know how great they are 3 times. Dirk, one of the greatest to ever do it, kid. Durant, come on, man. 3 times, Russell Westbrook, Harden, Kawhi Leonard 2 times, Steph Curry 4 times, Draymond Green and Klay Thompson 4 times each, man. I mean, in this aspect with regards to NBA Finals competition, at least in the sense of directly the players who you played against, we have to give this sentiment to LeBron James. He's faced more Hall of Famers to that degree. When we're talking about top talent in the league, he's seen far superior talent at the top of other teams' roster than Jordan ever saw when he played. Okay, now, when we go back to Jordan, because we want to talk about the playoffs, Michael Jordan faced 16 Hall of Famers throughout the playoffs on 39 occasions. He posted a winning record against 6 of the 16 players, right? And he tied a record with 1 and has a losing record with 9 of the 16 Hall of Fame players that he's faced in the playoffs. His total record in the playoffs against Hall of Fame opponents was 17-22, with 10 of his 17 wins coming against Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, and Alonzo Mourning, right? And if you want to include his finals appearances, MJ faced 24 Hall of Famers on 48 separate occasions, right? With a final postseason record of 26-22, or we could say 54%. The problem with this is 20% of his entire postseason wins came against 3 players who never won rings at all, right? So weigh that however you want. We just have to tell you the facts, right? But you guys see it on the screen right there. And as we said earlier, Jordan only has a winning record against 6 of 16 of the top players that he faced in the playoffs. I think that's something. I think that's something that you might want to consider as we move on to the competition that LeBron faced. And when we talk about the competition that LeBron faced 14 current or future Hall of Famers through the playoffs, with many players who may end up there that aren't listed here. He faces these, right? So he faced these 14 on 34 occasions. He posted a winning record against 11 of the 14. He tied with 2 and only posted a losing record to Dwight Howard, who he's only had a single matchup with. So his total record against Hall of Fame opponents in the playoffs comes to 25-9, right? He's having no more than 3 wins against a single opponent. And if you include the finals with LeBron, similar to how we did with Michael Jordan, LeBron faced 25 Hall of Famers on 66 occasions with a final postseason record of 35-31 at 53%. And of those 25 Hall of Famers, 7 of them accounted for 17 of his matchup losses. And that begins with the Dynasty Spurs and the Dynasty Warriors. So inclusion, when we look at competition in the playoffs, we can see that both players won more than they lost. Jordan never beat a Dynasty Celtics in the playoffs, and he had a 25% winning percentage against the bad boy Detroit Pistons. The majority of his postseason wins came against Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, and Alonzo Mourning, guys who never won a ring, right? LeBron, however, won against multiple Hall of Famers at a good ratio. He posted only a losing record in the playoffs against 1 Hall of Famer who he played 1 single time. That was Dwight Howard. So Michael Jordan had a losing record in the playoffs against 9 Hall of Famers, 6 of which he could never beat in the postseason. So again, 9 out of 48 Hall of Fame opponents Jordan faced were in the finals, right? 33 of the 66 Hall of Fame opponents that LeBron James faced actually made the finals. So again, when you're weighing playoff competition and we're just talking about individual talent, not necessarily teams, and we'll get to teams later, when you're just talking about the top heavy talent on these rosters, this again also goes to LeBron James. And again, it's not me making this case. It's the numbers making the case. Now, you can argue with the numbers all you want. You can attempt to try to put your own spin or context to it. Unfortunately, I'm not here to do all that. I'm here to break down the science. I'm here to explain to you guys if Rich Paul was right in his statement or wrong. Let's move on to the next graphic. Okay, so this next graphic, I consider this next graphic to do a comparison of Jordan's 6 rings or 6 championships versus LeBron's 4. Michael Jordan has 6 championships in 6 attempts. That's clearly better than LeBron's 4 rings in 10 attempts. Correct? But not necessarily. While Jordan does have a better finals record and more rings, it doesn't make him automatically better in the postseason. Based on the number of teams admitted to the playoffs, if you are knocked out of the first round, you could be ranked at 16th at worst or 9th at best. And the ranking goes up to 8th and 5th during the second round. If eliminated during the conference finals, you could be ranked 4th at worst to 3rd at best. And then losing in the finals obviously means that you're the second best team in the league. Below, so this is a listing that shows the rounds of LeBron and Jordan in which they were eliminated. And we really want to look at this to break it down, because when you see it like this, it paints it in a different picture. So when we look at these numbers here on the screen, LeBron James has either been the best or second best in 10 of his 17 seasons. This means that 58.8% of the time, we can round up 58 or 59% of the time, he would make the finals and finish the season in first or second place, right? About 6% of the time, he would rank between 3rd and 4th, and he would rank between 5th and 8th. 17% of the time, right? So he is never ranked at 9th or lower when making the playoffs. James has missed the playoffs 3 times in his career, right? Or actually 4 if you want to count this year, meaning he finished on a team that was ranked 17th or worse 17% of the time. Now, when we look at Jordan's numbers, Jordan was first or second in 6 of his 15 seasons. He was the best in the league for 40% of the time. He was 3rd or 4th 13% of the time. And that same number applies to how often he ranked between 5th and 8th. He was ranked 9th or lower 20% of the time during his career. And Jordan has missed the playoffs 2 times in his career, meaning he finished on a team that was ranked 17th or worse 13% of the time. So while Jordan has a higher percentage of being the absolute best, he also had a higher percentage of being one of the worst teams in the playoffs. LeBron has had a much more consistent stream of winning throughout his career, even if it wasn't always winning the championship. Now, it's up to you to weigh that as you want, because you're going to have a lot of people that heavily weigh the 6-0. And we tell people, when you weigh the 6-0, it's really bad logic, because then it introduces the John Havliceks and the Bill Russells and other guys who were undefeated. And then you open up Pandora's box to invite a whole bunch of other players who aren't necessarily in the GOAT conversation. You invite them in, and then you find Jordan fans trying to scramble and discredit the careers of those players just to keep Michael Jordan elevated. So once again, we have another stat that I believe, if we're talking about competition, because a lot of people are going to turn this video into a GOAT conversation when it's not, because it's strictly about how you fared against your own competition. Michael Jordan struggled more with his competition, more so than LeBron, and LeBron clearly has had a more consistent stream of winning throughout his career. We have to be fair, because earlier we spoke on individual players, and the individual talent that LeBron James saw from team to team was much greater, right? As we saw that LeBron James has faced a large number of Hall of Famers or potential Hall of Famers in his path to where he is now. However, when we're talking about teams, right, average wins, we want to look at the net rating, and this is going to be for the regular season. The average wins and net rating for teams led by Jordan and LeBron James and their playoff opponents from 1984 to 85. And we're going to go through 2018 to 19 seasons, okay? So with Michael Jordan, his average wins were going to be 58.38. And as you guys can see, his playoff opponents' average wins are going to be 53.54. So in this particular sense right here, when we're looking at teams and not necessarily the top heavy talent, Michael Jordan, the record of the teams that he's faced on average has been higher than LeBron's, as we see there. LeBron's team's average wins is around 55, while his opponent's average wins in the playoffs is 51. So a lot of people, again, there's a misconception that LeBron plays all these low-seeded teams, but again, on average, the teams that LeBron James plays on the playoffs are 50-win teams. And when we look into that net rating, right, that net rating, the net rating actually says that the teams Jordan faced have a net rating of 4.58 compared to LeBron James. With the teams that he faced, they have a net rating on average of 3.97. So when you're talking about competition, the net rating in the regular season definitely favors Michael Jordan. And now we have to take this same metric and let's compare it to the playoffs and then also the NBA Finals. Okay, and so again, when we're looking to be fair, we just looked at the net rating for the teams that Jordan and LeBron faced in the regular season. The regular season, we saw that the net rating favored the opponents that Jordan played. But what about the opponents in the playoffs? Well, as we can see by this stat right here, the net rating, LeBron's teams in the playoffs are far superior net rating in the playoffs, especially in the finals. They have a far superior net rating overall than any team and in most teams that Michael Jordan ever faced. So when we look at 2016, 2017, 2015, those Warriors teams have a much higher opponent net rating than any team that Chicago Bulls face. So that's not even including regular season. That's just the playoffs. That's just the finals right there, right? And you know, when we look to the Bulls, and then we see the Bulls also made the upper echelon or the top portion of this list because of that Sonics run, but the rest of this list is flooded with all of LeBron James's playoff performances from playoff matchups against the Heat or against playoff matchups against the Warriors, playoff matchups against, the Spurs. I mean, it's flooded with all of LeBron James's matchups in the playoffs and all of the Bulls matchup. Jordan's playoff net opponents fall towards the bottom of this list. So again, with retrospect to the playoffs, we have to give Michael Jordan the regular season, but when we talk about the playoffs, this is another category that falls again to LeBron James, primarily because he's just saw more talent in the playoffs than Michael Jordan ever saw. And that's why the net rating for the teams that LeBron saw in the playoffs is just going to be far superior than that Michael Jordan saw. When we bring all of this together, when we look at all the categories, we talk about playoff net rating went to LeBron. Regular season opponent net rating went to Jordan. When we look to clutch actually favored LeBron James. When you're talking about facing elimination, when you're talking about either eliminating a team, when you're going to go to clutch and you're talking about buzzer beaters, that also favored. When you talk about 6 rings versus 4 rings, but then you put in the context that Jordan got eliminated from the first round 3 times, while LeBron got eliminated 3 times from the second round, but Jordan also got eliminated from the second round 2 times. Jordan's lost in the conference finals 2 times. LeBron's lost once. So again, when you talk about the finals, that's where LeBron has done the majority of his losing, in the finals. So then you have to ask yourself, Jordan's lost a combined 7 times before getting to the finals, right? LeBron did most of his losing in the playoffs in the finals. He was able to get his teams much further, and at least to the finals, where he can finish first or second before they actually lost. How do you want to weigh that? When I look at it in that light, because when I saw these statistics put together like this, it looks and hits a little different. So when I look at it like this, the longevity factor edges out in LeBron's favor. He's taken more teams farther. He's not lost early in the playoffs as much as Jordan. Jordan has lost early in the playoffs more. Jordan's had more teams in the bottom of the league, right? And LeBron's, for the most part, is getting his team to the finals, at least finishing first or second at a much higher clip. And he still does have 4 chips that you have to account for. That's, these are all of the metrics that we talked about. And then we didn't even touch on, we didn't even touch on the aspect of what Jordan faced because of the expansion, right? But I think we all know the impact of what that expansion did to the league. And I think as we summarize this right here and we make a final conclusion, right? When we make a final conclusion on this, I think that's what separates the two and makes what Rich Paul said accurate. And so we can kind of summarize, Michael Jordan played in a league that was watered down throughout his career. As the new expansion teams finally got to the playoffs, they obviously didn't stay long. New teams continued to flood the league, right? At any given time in his career, we're talking about from 1988, right? There were at least 3 teams that had 5 or less years of experience. However, LeBron also has had his fair share of criticism playing against weak competition. And so while Jordan, it could have been said that the league was overall weak, many believe that LeBron has played against weak competition for the duration of his career, right? So the East has been behind the West in almost every single season that LeBron played, at least over in the East, or even throughout the duration of his career. And so when we look at the total number of wins and head-to-head matchups in both the conferences, the East has only won more games in one of those seasons than LeBron James, and I think that was the 2014 season. So aside from this, LeBron James has only had 2 losing seasons against the Western Conference. So while many people say LeBron played in a weak East, he actually dominated the Western Conference to a degree as well. He's only had 2 losing seasons in his career against the Western Conference, and that was his rookie year. And then I think his first year with the Lakers where they were 25-27. So, and I think he might have tied at 15-15. I think that was in the 2017-2018 season. So in every other season that LeBron James, in every other season, he has a winning record against the West. So while people say he was in a weak East, he also showed some signals of domination against the West. And he bolsters a 344 and 197 record against the Western Conference for his career. So while LeBron did play in a weaker overall conference for most of his career, he has never had any trouble beating the teams in the West. And so when we take everything that we've put together in its totality, we looked at the accolades. We said that the accolades favored Michael Jordan. When we look at the statistics in the regular season, obviously that favors LeBron. Statistics in the postseason, those statistics favor LeBron. However you want to try to slice it, there's just no way to avoid it. And so when we take this back to what Rich Paul said, Rich Paul stated, LeBron James faced more obstacles than Michael Jordan. The road for LeBron was just as hard, if not harder, than the road that Michael had. And when you take that sentence and you compare it to all of the facts that we just displayed, remember, we did all the facts in black and white, so there's no confusion. There's no fancy graphics. So people who like seeing the Atari style graphics, you got that today. So we wanted to keep it basic for you. The statistics, the analytics, all of these things put into context favor LeBron James as having a much tougher road in the NBA than Michael Jordan. And we're talking from regular season to postseason. And then when you look at what LeBron has been able to do against tougher competition, hitting more game winners, statistically showing that he's more clutch than Jordan. These are the things that, again, people can start using now for their GOAT conversation and their GOAT narratives and their GOAT arguments. And so, again, Jordan fans, you're gonna have to hit the drawing board again and come up with some more stats, because again, this is another angle that has now been taken away from you. You can no longer use the competition argument, because even that argument doesn't favor you when the research has been properly done. So you guys spam up the comments. Let me know what you think about this particular video. I really want to know your thoughts. If I missed anything, if there's something I didn't cover, is there some aspect of a competition that I didn't cover, let me know in the comments. And when we go live again, look, I don't mind. You guys can come up and you guys can let me know. But again, everything that I showed you statistically, analytically, as far as the top talent, again, unfortunately for the Jordan fans, these things favor LeBron, and you're going to have to really strengthen your arguments that you make when you're trying to label him as the GOAT, because you're running out of the false narratives. The false narratives are starting to get disproven, especially as more and more of the footage of when Jordan actually played is now available for people to watch and now actually research. You cannot finesse people anymore with the lies and the mythicism about Michael Jordan, because the facts and the stacks are out there. Now, does this negate or take away from Jordan's greatness? No, it doesn't. I myself still have Jordan as the GOAT. I've discussed why I have him as the GOAT. But again, I really made this video because of the logic that I hear certain people use, especially when they want to look to attack a guy like Rich Paul. And they're willing to say anything. They're willing to push any narrative just to spew something negative about him. And, as I heard another YouTuber say, he says it's so easy to call out the negative. And when we talk about these players, the easy thing is, and this is what the casuals are going to do, the easy thing is to run to the negative. The difficult thing is to actually do what they've done or actually be able to break down the good. That's the difficult. And so when you see people that go above and beyond to simply hate LeBron James, or even above and beyond to hate Michael Jordan, what you see is people chasing the easy. Right, this video I could have easily swayed and mentioned all metrics that favor LeBron, but I also talked about a lot of metrics that favor Jordan. Like when we talk about regular season opponent net rating, as far as teams that actually made the playoffs, that favored Jordan. Accolades favored Jordan, but unfortunately, in a lot of the other categories that are significant in this conversation, they just didn't favor him. And so, again, as we proceed in these conversations, are you going to be one of those people willing to take this information and reanalyze who you have as the GOAT based on your criteria and logic? Or are you going to be one of those people that simply try to change your criteria and logic so that you can find a reason to keep who you like at the top? And I think that is one of the worst things that we see in this basketball debate spectrum. So many people just try to finesse. They want to keep the guy at the top. They want to elevate people, but they really don't have any real reason as to why, other than they just like the guy. But it's FYF Sports, man. It's been another great podcast episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once again, I tried to do this in black and white to keep it simple, not confuse the masses. But I really want you guys to spam up the comments. Let me know your thoughts on this particular video. I know it's an interesting take, once again, that a lot of people are going to be invested in. We're definitely going to go live to speak about this ahead of the NBA Finals. So make sure you guys, you have your talking points ready, because we definitely have to talk about this soon on FYF Sports when we go live. But it's FYF Sports, man. Another great podcast episode. Salute to everybody watching the videos. Again, this month on YouTube, as far as the views, as far as engagement, as far as watch time, has been one of the best months that we've ever had. I mean, it's been unbelievable. So again, now it's time for you guys to really activate. Right, start sharing the videos a little bit more, smashing the like, hitting the subscribe. Right, we're getting what, 300, maybe 500, sometimes close to 700 likes on the video, but we really need to get that number up so we can get locked into these recommendations and really spread the word about this channel. I mean, it's such a joy when we go live and I see people from Australia, Indonesia. We had a young kid from the Philippines in the chat. And so that's when we start seeing indications like that, and we're starting to become a worldwide brand. That's because you guys are tuning in, not just tuning in, but supporting and appreciating the content. So there are going to be a lot of people out there that's going to want to hate, throw shade. But in this debate game, in this sports world where we talk basketball, it's nothing but respect. At the end of the day, it's just all sports talk. And I do appreciate the content creators when we talk about the Mookie Jones, we talk about Showtime, when we talk about True to King, we talk about U3 Sports. I mean, when we talk about all these channels, we go at it and we clash, right, with the basketball topics and all of that. But at the end of the day, there is a level of mutual respect amongst the core group of people who want to do this the right way. And then you're going to have those outliers out there. You're going to have the oddballs out there who want to act like they flagship this whole thing. When you talk about the casinos and the tickets, right? Those are the people that just want to take it all for themselves. And generally, when you see those types of people, that's generally where the most hateful content comes from. Remember what I told y'all. The hate in these takes is the easy part. To find things that LeBron James does wrong, to find things that you want to hate on LeBron James about, that's easy. That's casual. Those are the things you can read in the toxic media. The same people that they cry about, the Stephen A's and all of that, they've become those same people. So again, we try to keep it neutral. We try to keep it fair. Just like Draymond Green says, it's a new version of the sports media that we're trying to put out there because we bring in these sports takes from a fair and non-biased perspective. So again, salute to those content creators. If I miss your name, again, salute to you. But we just had to, get that out there. But it's FYF Sports. It's been another great podcast episode. We'll be back with more sports and news. But until then, it's FYF Sports. And we out.
Trapping hard, getting rid of them loads. Gotta go get it, the life that I chose. Let a finger, fuck the cash and fuck on the hoes. Been through it all, I sold $1 million no's. Stack up a milli, got rich nigga goals. Stack up a milli, got rich nigga goals. I got rich nigga goals. I got rich nigga goals. So trapping hard, getting rid of them loads. Gotta go get it, the life that I chose. Let a finger, fuck the cash and fuck on the hoes. Been through it all, I sold $1 million no's. Stack up a milli, got rich nigga goals. Stack up a milli, got rich nigga goals. I got rich nigga goals. I got rich nigga goals. Ain't always that place I started was on. So million notes from the land of the old. 1B a millionaire, got rich nigga goals. Neck and wrist froze, might do the rules gold. VVS in my 41mm, keep the pack strapped with a 9mm. My bitch bag, I do right shit, keep a letter, write me, then I flip her over and beat her. Fuck me good, her shit wetter than water. Help me count up my way up for the morning. Switch my number pack, touchdown, I'm gonna run through the lows, importer, exporter. Love when the number drop my bag increase. Up and down like stocks, hate when it decrease. Play with cash, we pop up, these niggas DC. Can't escape my past, the trap shit and me. Got turned out when I sing what you make of zones. Chasing bags, trying to get it till I jumped out the pool. Sell designer, why designer down, fucking with the lows. Make movies in the club every time I light show. Got turned out when I sing what you make of zones. Chasing bags, trying to get it till I jumped out the pool. Sell designer, why designer down, fucking with the lows. Make movies in the club every time I light show. So trapping hard, getting rid of them loads. Gotta go get it, the life that I chose. Let a finger, fuck the cash and fuck on the hoes. Been through it all, I sold $1 million no's. Stack up a milli, got rich nigga goals. Stack up a milli, got rich nigga goals. I got rich nigga goals. I got rich nigga goals. So trapping hard, getting rid of them loads. Gotta go get it, the life that I chose. Let a finger, fuck the cash and fuck on the hoes. Been through it all, I sold $1 million no's. Stack up a milli, got rich nigga goals. Stack up a milli, got rich nigga goals. I got rich nigga goals. I got rich nigga goals.